Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 2, where we are exploring our galactic origins and becoming multidimensional. I'm your host, Washayla Sananda, and it is my pleasure today to introduce you to Karen Curry Parker. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. My favorite conversation topic. So,
Yes, so today we're going to be diving into the human design mostly, and that's how I found Karen. However, I have to read your bio, and I don't always read bios, but you're so much more diverse. You're so much more than the human design expert. However, that's really, the main focus, but I will share this because you've done a lot and I want people to know. Karen Curry Parker is a best-selling author of multiple books, creator of the Human Design for Everyone Training System and the Quantum Alignment System. She has been speaking, coaching, training, and podcasting on these topics for almost 30 years. Her mission is to help people live the life they were designed to live by discovering who they are, what they are here to do, and how to activate their potential and authentic life path. Karen has degrees in nursing and journalism. She's a midwife, has launched her own publishing company, and she studied EFT, belief point energy, repatterning, and of course, human design. Karen blended all of her training to create a new leading edge coach training program called Quantum Alignment System. She is currently pursuing her PhD in Integrative Health, as if all that wasn't enough, and working on multiple new books. So welcome, Karen, and wow, you have, you've done a lot, and it sounds like you've had just really honed in on making the human design understandable for everyone. And I so appreciate that, because this is something I've been wanting to learn more about, and I just haven't really had the time to unfold into it. So where I would love to just start today is if we could get you to kind of share about what are the basic human designs, or what are the basics of human design, and maybe just condensed version of how would you share it with newbies like me. I'm kind of a newbie. I mean, I know about it, but I'm not certainly no expert.
so I'll start with just the basics of human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. What I like to say is that it's basically a Rolodex of ancient and modern archetypes. So it's kind of just a really, when we say to ourselves, or we go on a journey or to explore who we are, or we go on to what I think you love to call, and I think is a really good way of articulating this path of ascension, we have to start first by sort of looking at where are we and where do we want to go, and where are we perhaps not living authentically, and what we need to do to get to expressing the true story, and I think our true purpose, and in many of our cases, our true mission around who we are and why we're here. Human design gives you a really beautiful index, if you will, to let you sort of sort through, or this Rolodex. That's how old I am. I still remember the card files, right, that we used to have with information on them. But you can scroll through this Rolodex of all these different personality traits and really contemplate consciously, how do you bring out the highest expression of each one of these aspects of the complexity of your human story. That to me is what it is in a nutshell. It's kind of a map that gives you a path to show you how you can tell a better story, a more true story, a more actualized story about who you really are. At the heart of human design, if you want to keep it simple, is what we call the energy types. There are 5 types in the human design system. Each type has a different way of interfacing with the outer reality, or the cosmos, or your world. So I've been thinking, this is kind of where we are, and probably dates me significantly, but recently I really got the call to go back and read the Celestine Prophecy. Did you ever read those in the 1990s? I'm reading this book, and they're mind-blowing because they're so relevant, right, to today. But one of the biggest things that the sort of the concepts it's introduced, which, you know, for many of us is like, yeah, I got it. But is the idea of synchronicity, right? You go out into the world and you have an intention, and all of a sudden sort of magically things show up. In human design, the aspect or the process of living in synchronicity and the way in which you can tap into more effectively the power of synchronicity comes from understanding your unique human design type, because each one of those 5 types has a little bit of a different way of following the signs and the clues, if you will, that the universe is unfolding for you to help you see the path of who you really are. So the first type is called the manifestor type. Manifestors are approximately 8% of the population. If you're a manifestor type, you basically have a life path and a way of engaging with your life and reality that involves you connecting to your inner, non-verbal creative flow. So the manifestor types are actually the only type that really are designed to take their direction from their internal connection to source. We all think we want to be manifestors. We think that's really cool, right? Have a thought, go out, make it happen. In reality, that's actually not always so easy, because sometimes you have to interpret all of those parts of your creative process. So the manifestors, though, when they follow that inner flow, they actually go take action and ultimately initiate other people into other possibilities. So they're kind of like the billiard ball on the pool table, if you will, or the billiard table. The second 2 types, the generators and the manifesting generators, have a way of engaging with the world through what we call responding, meaning we talk about this all the time, right? You follow the signs, you follow the clues, right? You have a thought, you go outside, and suddenly you see something in your world outside of you, in that 3rd dimensional spiritual matrix that we're living in, that sort of confirms for you, oh yeah, that is the right way you should be going. And it feels good, right? When we find those signs or we run into those clues that the universe sprinkles in front of us, we go, oh yeah, that feels right, that feels good. And then we go follow that path. That's kind of how the generator types, which is most of us, about 70% of us are generator types. That's how we engage with decision making. That's how, when you say to yourself, oh, I feel so lost, or I'm so disconnected from my truth, or whatever, you get a sign, right? And we follow those signs, and those signs sort of lead to the unfolding of the next right step in our path. The 4th type in human design is called the projectors. And projectors are, I think, the most interesting, kind of my favorite types in a way. The projector is a kind of a new type. They've only been on the planet for a couple of 100 years. I do believe that when we talk about ascension, that it is the projector that's really carrying inside of themselves the awareness and the energetic template, if you will, the grid, or the subtle body of where we're going next on the planet. They have an internal sense of what needs to happen for us to maximize the potential of our human evolution, our human story. As a projector, projectors take a look out at the world around us, whether they're looking at their family or they're looking at what's going on in politics or what's going on at work. A projector can see the potential, and their natural instinct is to guide people into fulfilling that potential. So you'll see in the light worker community, I think, a disproportionate number of projectors, because it's a great place for them to serve at their highest level, right? They can manage and guide and direct and help people heal and clean up anything that might be keeping them from fulfilling their potential. Projectors are about 20% of the population. They have a little bit of a challenge in that, as projectors, they have to wait to be recognized and invited by people in order to share their wisdom, which can be really frustrating in a world that's always pushing on us, right? We're always told, go out, make it happen. You know, you should just have the courage and the confidence to just go say something. That works fine if you're a manifestor type, a little bit if you're a generator type, but not really for a projector type. In fact, if a projector just blurts out the deep wisdom that they have, people tend to either ignore it, or people will say things like, who asked you and why are you being so bossy? Or they'll take their idea and run with it and they won't get credit for it. So it really behooves the projector to wait for that recognition and invitation, because that invitation and that recognition says, this person over here who's inviting me and recognizing me values me and what I have to say so much that they're willing to call me out into service. And so it's really about recognizing the invitation comes from people who value you and working on your own sense of value so you take the right invitations. The last type is called the reflector. Reflectors are pretty rare. We call them the shiny unicorns in human design. Reflectors are less than 1% of the population, and they have a unique life path that is about taking in the energy of whatever community they're with and amplifying it and kind of reflecting it back. So to a certain degree, reflectors are the barometers on the scale of how well are we doing in the path of our evolution. So if you have a reflector, you know a reflector, and they're really happy and they're connected to their joy and they're feeling really good in life, it means that where they're living, the people who they're with, the community they're reflecting back is doing really well. If you have a sorry, that was my phone. If you have a reflector who's reflecting back to you heaviness, disappointment, grief, stuckness, bitterness, then that reflector is really showing you that your community as a whole isn't doing as well on that evolutionary path and maybe has some things they need to clear up and clean up in order to get more aligned with the true story of who we are. So understanding the purpose of those of each one of those types and really how to access the fulfillment of your story by understanding your type is really, really powerful because it helps you align more deeply with your purpose and gives you a very nice path to sort of begin to unpack who are you, how do you live true to yourself, and how do you fulfill the mission that many of us, I think, feel that we're on at this point in time on the planet.
Wow, thank you for that description. And I really love that about the, the reflector. I hadn't heard it quite like that. And that makes sense. I do have a friend who's a reflector, and I know once she kind of learned about that, that sort of put some things, like made a little more sense. The world made a little more sense. And I think that's the whole idea with learning about the human design and these types of technologies that can really, like you said, give us a pathway to higher consciousness. And so I want to go back to that. What you said toward the beginning was just beautiful, how we can take this and use it. How do we use it as that roadmap or that guide to improve our potential and to bring out the best? And that's really your life's work, right? In what you've created is helping people do that. So let's dig into that part a little bit more.
So I think, underneath the basicness of human design, hold on, the world is calling me. Underneath the basic sort of live true to your energy type, there's an enormous amount of information in the system. And I do think that, you said in the beginning, and I think there's a certain amount of truth that there's a complexity to the system. And it's not that it's hard, it's that there's a lot of parts because it gives you so much information about how you can really actualize your full potential. I think the first place to start with understanding that is recognizing that the minute we're born and the minute we begin to go out and experience the human story, we're already beginning to be living in a way that moves us out of our authentic self. In human design, we call that conditioning. Basically what it means, and actually we have science around this, is a lot of what I'm doing with my own research. Basically every decision that you've made, every decision that you witness being unfolding, the belief systems from your family, how your family behaved, your ancestral lineage down to the genetic level, everything you experience in school, growing up, all of these experiences form a narrative. They form the story of who you think you are. But that narrative isn't necessarily the true story of who you could be. And so human design starts to give us an understanding of, why am I behaving this way? Why do I think I want to do this? And I go do this, whatever it may be. And as soon as I'm in it, I'm like, why am I doing this? I hate it, but I thought I wanted to do this my whole life, or I thought this is what I should do to be successful, etc. And it starts to give you a way to really interpret, why are you conditioned? Why have you been entrained to think that you're someone that you're not? So I'm going to break it down and make this really, really simple, because there is, as I said, it's not really hard. It's just there's a lot of different little places where you can begin to unwind your story out of your conditioning field and step into what I believe is a higher expression of consciousness. In the human design system, there are 9 energy centers on the chart. They correlate loosely to the 7 chakras from the Hindu chakra system. Each center is responsible for processing a different kind of energy. So there is a center that's called the emotional solar plexus. That is the center that we use to interpret emotional information. Half of us have our own internal source of emotional energy that can sometimes be very creative, very passionate, can be also very wave life, can function making us sort of moody if we don't know how to work with that energy. The other half of us have the center, what we call open, or they're empathic, meaning the other half of us are getting our emotional energy from others. So if you are somebody who, when you look at your chart, you see, oh, I have an open emotional solar plexus, I am an emotional empath, and you go into your life now with that understanding, you can start to go, oh, wait, I'm having this emotion. I'm feeling this way. I'm waking up and the heaviness of the world is weighing on me. And I'm thinking I should go back to bed and hide under the covers, eat some chocolate and watch some Netflix and maybe grab some Cheetos. You can, instead of reacting in that old pattern of maybe trying to manage those energies or avoiding anything that has conflict in it, or, you know, feeling really depressed because you're sensing the energy of the world, you can start to now say to yourself, oh, wait, time out. I'm emotionally open. I'm an empath. That means what I'm feeling, this isn't my energy. This is the energy of what's going on around me. I don't have to take it in. I don't have to identify with it. I certainly don't have to fix it. It's my job to say, in my environment right now, there's this emotional energy. I can be with it. I can, if I want to, go outside, put my feet in the ground, ground myself, go put my back against a tree, whatever. I can release it. And from that understanding, stop living into these patterns where maybe I've been tiptoeing around other people's emotional energies in sort of codependent patterns for my whole life. And I can start to liberate myself from that and start speaking my truth, setting better boundaries, and not being responsible for keeping everybody in my family happy anymore.
Yeah. So what you're really saying there is that the open center, so when someone looks at their chart, and we'll link them to your free chart, if it's white on the chart, that's an open center, and that is an empathic center then.
Correct.
Is that true of any place that's open or white, not colored in on the graph?
Totally. So on the chart, when you all run your charts, you'll see that there are colors on the chart and there's whiteness on the chart. Anything that's colored in on the chart, that's your inherent energy that you have yourself. Anything that's open is energy that you're taking in from the world around you. And you're not just taking in, you're actually taking in and amplifying it. So you actually experience anything in those empathic centers in an amplified way. So we tend to, in our openness, and everyone has openness of some kind, in those places where we're open, if we're not aware of how that energy operates, it's easy for us to let our energy field get hijacked by somebody else's energy and start living out from somebody else's conditioning, somebody else's belief systems, somebody else's intentions, somebody else's desires, somebody else's inspirations, instead of living true to our own. It's a little bit shocking, I think, for a lot of us when we really start to look at, okay, how does my energy field work? When we start to use human design and sort of dig into, wow, all of these ways that I thought I was the dramatic one in my family, for example. A lot of people who are empathic have a family dynamic in their family of origin where they're the dramatic one. And instead of really saying, okay, I'm the dramatic one, they can now start to say to themselves, wow, I'm the emotional canary in the coal mine. I'm the barometer for the emotional well-being of my family. And when I go into my family situation and I don't feel good, I don't have to act it out. I don't have to take energy and express all of it. I can simply go, my family's having an emotional day today. I think I'll go somewhere else for the afternoon. And that allows you to stay, most importantly, in the integrity of your own energy. And the reason why that's so important at this stage in the evolution is, well, there's multiple reasons for it. Number one, when we're living out a drama that's not our own, when we're living out energy that's not our own, it's traumatic, it's painful, it's depleting, and it's exhausting. And it doesn't let you show up for the things you're supposed to be showing up, your right path. Each and every one of us has a unique, vital, and irreplaceable role to play in the cosmic plan, if you will, or in the unfolding of the evolution of humanity. If you are letting your energy be misused because you don't understand how to be sovereign over your own energy field, and it takes you down a path that is exhausting, depleting, denies your own value, doesn't let you stand in that unique, vital, and irreplaceable place that you are designed to create, not only is it really painful and uncomfortable and ultimately can take a toll on your relationships and your money and your well-being and your health, it also doesn't put you in the right place to serve the evolution of humanity. And on a certain level, whether we're aware of it cognitively or not, we know it. It doesn't feel right. We wake up in the morning and we say to ourselves, like, I know I'm here for a reason and I can't remember what it is, or I feel so disconnected from my purpose. And we feel lost because we've let ourselves go down an energy rabbit hole, or we've let our energy get so enmeshed with the energies around us that we're not clear about who we are and why we're here and how to get there.
Mm. Oh, that's such a great description. And it's really empowering for people. So many people nowadays, I think, are aware of what it is to be empathic. And yet there's this feeling of, it's almost like a curse to be too empathic, because it's so much to deal with. So I love that, this is another way to go in and look, okay, well, here's why I'm feeling that way. And then here's what I can do about it. So that's very empowering. Now, you mentioned the solar plexus being like the emotional center. Is what, for instance, I have the root is open for me. Is that going to have a different effect than the solar plexus? And how does that work?
So the root center, which correlates to the root center in the chakra system, is the place where we have two important things. First of all, it's the pulse for adrenaline energy. So adrenaline energy is sourced in that center. It's also the center that, when it gives us a pulse of adrenaline energy, is also indicating to us when is right timing or divine timing. That's so important to understand, because I really do believe that probably one of the biggest ways that we exhaust ourselves, other than misinterpreting our energy, is we push against right timing. We we suck as human at timing, right? I think part of it because we were born, we remember sort of being these beings who can, outside of our bodies, create planets and do all these amazing things, and we come here and we have this third dimensional element of time, and it's linear and it's boring and it takes too long, and you have to build up all this right alignment before things happen. And so a lot of times we get really impatient with timing and we push against it. And of course, if you think about, this is the adrenaline center, if we're pushing against right timing, we're burning ourselves out. We're literally burning out our adrenals because we're pushing against right timing. When that center is open, and that's again going to be half of you. Half of us have the center open, half of us have the center colored in. When it's colored in, it means you don't get that adrenaline pulse for right action until the timing is right. And if you're pushing against timing, you're going to feel like you're moving through mud. When you have the center white on your chart, as you do, it means you take in other people's adrenaline energies and you amplify it. And that amplification creates pressure. It's adrenaline pressure. So it can make you feel like, I can't do this, I can't rest, I can't stop, I can't take a break, I can't go take a bath, I can't go for a walk, I can't do all the fun things I want to do in my life because I have this to-do list that's like a bajillion pages long. And the irony of it, when you have an open root center, is that to-do list never gets done because you're always adding something to it. So the trick there, in terms of really understanding that energy, is being able to say to yourself, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I don't do this right now? And that just learning to ask that question in the face of pressure is really, really important, especially for someone with you who's as powerful as you are, because you have a lot of energy to kind of override divine timing and push. It doesn't mean that, because you are so powerful, you'll be able to get at least a little bit of results with your will, the push and force of your sheer will. But if you can learn to say, okay, when the timing is right, and I'm not pressurized, I'm going to get the signals from my outer reality that are going to tell me, hey, well, Shayla, now is the right time. And I'm going to trust and wait for those signals. I'm going to relax here and nurture myself and take care of myself in the meantime, instead of thinking, okay, well, while I'm waiting, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. To let yourself be present to the awareness of time and the flow of time and relax. And when the timing is right, you'll get that pulse and you'll be able to then very quickly spring into action. But that open root center, I have the same thing. I really think that of all the aspects of the chart, this one of the more difficult ones to kind of decondition, mostly because our society is just still so very fixated on doingness. And there's a certain amount, I think, of, I'm not saying you have this, but I think our society sort of takes pride in pushing and pushing with adrenaline. And we have a little bit of a doing adrenaline addiction, I think, at least in the Western world.
Yeah, for sure. That's really helpful because, yeah, I definitely have, I vacillate. I experience both of those from, the push, 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 and I'm going to accomplish so much too. It just doesn't feel like the right time. I can't do it. It's not the right time. So that's really helpful. And now, is that correlated with a type, like an energy type, or could that be for any energy type?
That particular configuration can be for anyone.
Okay, got it. Got it. And so then next, you talked about following the synchronicities, which I love, and I loved Celestine Prophecy and went to see the author speak live back when that was a new release a long time ago. And have loved that book, and it's multidimensional. You can read it in a very, like all of this, you can read it and get like the basic out of it, but then you can read it again years later and like, oh, there's more here than what I got the first time. And I feel like that's what all of these technologies are. So when you talk about following the synchronicities, how does that apply to these systems, to the human design?
So every one of us, even our manifestor types, we are in some way designed to wait. And this kind of goes back to our conversation about right timing. So much about human design is about giving us strategies to wait for right timing. Because as I said, as humans, we can influence timing. And of course, the only way you can actually really influence timing is to get yourself prepared so that when the timing is right, you can spring into action. And that's important. But recognizing that we can't control timing. We are literally at the mercy of divine timing. So we have to, in certain ways, shapes, or forms, learn how to constructively wait. When we understand synchronicity, meaning when we let go and we stop pushing and we stop doing and we stop, most importantly, trying to figure things out with our head, which is, to me, one of the most interesting things that most of us do, right? We can be laying on the couch resting and be worrying and trying to figure things out and wake up from a nap or a rest cycle and be completely exhausted because we've been trying to figure things out the whole time. When you can let go and trust that from your intention, that the universe or God or source or whatever you want to call it is going to then say to you, look, here's the next right step. And that next right step is going to show up in this third dimensional matrix that we're in, which is really just this big giant spiritual hug that we're walking through all the time. As we walk through this space, this matrix that we're in, basically, the next right step gets revealed to you. And it's oftentimes not what you anticipated. It's oftentimes a confirmation, what you were already thinking in your head. It's a sign, a signal, and a clue or a cue. And if we start to live in such a way that we are in an expectant state of this external reality is going to reveal to me what the next right step is, and I don't have to be under pressure to figure out what the next right thing is. I don't have to be under pressure to figure out how to maintain and sustain the environment so that if somebody's having an emotion, it doesn't disrupt my entire creative process. I don't have to figure anything out except look at what's showing up and then go do the thing that's showing up that feels right. And I think we like to complicate it a lot. I think even the idea or the word synchronicity sort of, you can certainly unpack it and say, well, if you've got something that's synchronicity, it's because there's this intention and that intention, and there's these entangled and hierarchies that are pulling out of all these potentials in the quantum field. And you could go there. We could sit here and hash through the quantum physics of synchronicity. But in reality, all it really is a loving universe that wants you to be fulfilling the full expression of who you really are in the most abundant way possible. And you don't have to figure out how to do that. It's going to let you know what the next right step is. All you really have to do is be quiet, be still, be appreciative, pay attention, and follow what the next clue is. And then the next question, this is the next question people always ask me. And when I say this is the next question some of you are going to be thinking right now. Well, but what if nothing happens? That's always the next question. I will tell you that if it seems that nothing is happening, two things, actually three things. Number one, it might be that the timing's not right, and that's okay. If the timing's not right, don't give up the intention. Do what you need to do in the meantime to creatively wait. Number two, while you're creatively waiting, work on your sense of self-worth. Because the more you can stand in your own value, the more the universe is going to give you the next right clue to fulfilling that value in the highest way possible. And number three, don't push against the timing because you'll burn out. And I find that the number one reason why my clients don't get cues and clues and it seems like nothing's happening is because the universe is going, honey, oh my goodness, you're so tired. Look, we're not going to send you anything right now because we want you to get some rest, but we never take it. We always freak out or we're under, we have that pressure. And instead of going, wow, nothing's happening, I think I'll prepare myself for when it does by resting and taking care of myself and nurturing myself and doing something fun in the meantime. We instead panic because we're like, oh God, nothing's happening. So work on your sense of value, trust in divine timing, and take care of yourself and restore, replenish, restock, resource your energy so that when it is the right time, you'll be ready.
Yeah, that is excellent advice. And, I also experience that when I do that, when I do take that downtime, rest, I might look at my calendar and say, oh, I don't think I have time to go hang out with friends or something. But then when I actually just do and let the calendar wait, then it's like suddenly, when the time's right, it's just like boom, 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 boom. I get everything done so efficiently, so quickly. I have the focus, everything lines up, that person calls back or whatever it is. And it's like, done so quickly when if I was efforting my way through it, it would have taken way longer than hanging out with my friends anyway. Right?
Totally. I always joke I make more money on vacation every year than I do in my office because I'm like in the flow and I'm not in my head trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, and I also love like what you said about it's, work on your self-worth because the universe is reacting to who you're being at all times. And that's really about, personal empowerment and your authority and who are you being in the situation? Are you being the person that the universe isn't wanting to give more to that needs a break? Or are you being in your power, ready and sovereign and willing?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Okay, beautiful. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how have you uniquely made human design your own? I know there are a lot of people in the world that will read your chart or, train on how to understand the human design, but you've created Human Design for Everyone training system. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's different from somebody else that someone might go to?
Totally. So, first of all, I just always want to sort of preface this by saying the world is full of some really powerful, really great human design teachers. And I think people should go find the teacher or the speaker or the reader or the analyst that they resonate with. And there's no wrong or right interpretation of human design. There's multiple interpretations of human design. It's supposed to be that way. You're supposed to go where it feels right for you. One of the things that I've done, I studied with the founder of the system, Ra-Uru, who I've been teaching for 21 years. And over the course of learning traditional human design and then looking at it and kind of saying, this is a tool that is a really great tool to kind of dismantle old identities, to kind of push you maybe sometimes in a shocking way out of old identities. It really wasn't giving me, as a coach, as a nurse, in my background, I have a therapeutic background. I wanted to use it as a tool to help people create a template, a personal narrative, something big enough and strong enough to call them forward when we're in a year like 2020, as we are now, where from an evolutionary perspective, it feels like things are kind of falling apart. I wanted people to have something that was big enough and strong enough to call them forward, even when they felt like, oh God, I don't want to get out of bed today. What's going to happen today, right? So, and I think the founder of the system, Rotler, who would have done this eventually, but he passed away in 2011. So he really didn't have the opportunity to recraft the language, to bring out specific words and language to use to amplify the potential of somebody's personal narrative. Now, in the work that I've done, I look at, and this is part of what I'm doing with my research, I look at the power of high frequency language and how it impacts gene regulation on a genetic level, how it impacts the upregulation of your genes. And what we see in our preliminary research, there's a couple of things. Number one, the frequency of words that you use, when you use high quality language, it actually upregulates your genes. So it makes you healthier. It changes your gene code. And I do think that a lot of times when we talk about, say, 12-strand DNA activation or DNA activations, a lot of what we can do in our human form is make sure we're using language that facilitates us being able to hold those higher frequencies. The second thing that we learned, and this isn't my research, this is actually the research of a woman named Tara Ashby. Dr. Ashby has done research that shows that DNA actually emits a frequency of energy, and that frequency of energy impacts cellular water. So it changes the water. We know from Dr. Emoto's work that when we use high frequency language, it changes the crystalline structure of water. And Dr. Ashby has said when we change our DNA, we change the crystalline structure of the water within our cells. But here's the other part that's really brilliant. She also has done research that shows that that DNA frequency is contagious. That when we move into higher states of DNA frequency emissions, if you will, not only are we impacting our own bodies, we actually can make the people around us healthier, happier, vibrating at a higher level. So language becomes this really, really powerful tool to not only change yourself and your ability to hold a frequency of energy, but it actually allows you then to become this beacon, basically, that can impact the people around you and lift their frequency as well. So what I have done in the last 5 years is I have rewritten all of the language of human design and converted it into high frequency language that we actually tested to see if this is language that had a high enough calling, if you will, or a high enough frequency of energy to begin to shift that DNA resonance field and begin to make physiological changes and vibrational changes in the energy, your body's capacity to hold energy. So this new language is actually called Quantum Human Design. And I'm getting ready actually to release several books about quantum human design this fall. And those books will have contained within them the higher frequency language that we used and how that language is actually facilitating the next phase in our evolution. We're actually in human design, there's actually the mechanics of what we've been calling the shift for like the last 20 or 30 years, right? The mechanics of the shift is actually contained within the story of human design, and our energy field itself is changing. And part of what's changing along with that is the way in which we create. We are no longer going to we haven't been, and we've been moving towards this for the last 100 years, but it's going to continue to snowball as we grow and raise our frequency. Our ability to create by virtue of knowing how to manipulate frequencies is changing, and our old way of creating that has been very 3D and tangible and pushing and will-based and effort-based is changing, and we're shifting into being able to access or tap into the flow of synchronicity or magic or whatever you want to call it by virtue of shifting our frequencies of energies and knowing how to consciously move frequencies of energies to create differently in the world. So that is a very big answer to that question, but bottom line is use good words. Use good words because it changes everything. And it's not just la 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 la, happy, happy, happy. It literally will shift you on a genetic level at a certain point. You have to do it repeatedly. You can't just do it for a day, but the more you do it, the more you actually change your body's capacity to hold higher frequencies of energies. And the more you have the capacity to not only impact yourself, but the people around you.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And that just makes so much sense to me. I'm, very familiar with conscious languaging. I've had a number of friends that practice that, which is a whole technique of languaging your life in a conscious way. There's also a book, very old book, I think, called The Language Crystal. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not, but I'm going to go find it as soon as we hang up.
I think it's very difficult to find, but I can send you some information on it if you'd like. But it's kind of like the quantum of language and how we create reality with it. And it's exactly what you're saying, how important it is to be intentional with our words, because our words are having an impact energetically, physically, you know, and even on the people around us and the world around us. And to be conscious of that and to upgrade that we can, it's something we can use to upgrade our experience.
Mhm.
I just love that. So in practice, tell me how, what does that look like? Like, what, could you give me an example of, for instance, how do you use that, or how might something have been languaged before that in your quantum style frequency language? How is it different? Can you just like, give a sample?
So here's an example, and it may not make sense to anyone who hasn't studied human design first. And I really say to everybody, study traditional human design first. You need to go through that process of learning what you're not first before you can start looking at who are you really. You have to kind of dismantle that old identity and create space. I call it going into the void. Create space in order to move into that different story. But I'll say that I renamed all the types, for example. So let's go back and revisit our projector type. The projector, it's a word that, first of all, doesn't really mean anything, you know, and it's a word that isn't necessarily a super low frequency word. I would say there's other language that's used in the human design system, but to sort of try to describe that would be obscure. It probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to people. But the projector, who has this role, right, of managing, guiding, and directing others, of holding the energy template of the new world in place as we evolve. I like to call the projector the orchestrator, because it's the projector that's literally orchestrating the energy of what's going on around them. They are taking all of these experiences and the way they see people behave and their life force energy, and they're, through their guidance, bringing them back into the right place so that they're occupying their spot on the grid, on the template of this evolving world. So it's a very subtle shift going from projector to orchestrator, but it's actually a significant shift in terms of personal narrative, because now you're not, I'm a projector, which, you know, has a very heavy psychological backstory to it, right? Because we talk about projection in pop psychology or in traditional psychology, and I'm projecting this and you're projecting that. And it's a very heavy laden, you know, a lot of context laden word that's not really uplifting. But to be an orchestrator, to be somebody who is now orchestrating the energy around them, who is unifying people around a template or a grid, and orchestrating the energy in the environment so that it's all moving in sync and in harmony with the subtle body potential of what's to be, is a much different way of thinking about yourself, and certainly a much different way of defining the personal narrative about who you think you are, if that's your energy type.
Wow. Yes. I love that. And it makes more sense too. Like you can just kind of envision it easier. Whereas projectors, like, what does that mean?
Right.
Yeah, I love that. So you went through each of the types. Will you share the others, or do you want to make us wait?
So the manifester is called the initiator.
Okay.
Manifesting generators, which is what I think, if I remember correctly, you are. We call them time benders.
Ooh.
Because you're always doing more than one thing at a time and finding the fastest, easiest path to get through. Projectors are the orchestrators. Reflectors are the calibrators. So we look at them and we sort of, through their reflection, we calibrate ourselves to a higher level, to a higher possibility.
Wow. I just love that. What powerful work.
Oh, and I forgot what, sorry. The generator types, sorry, I was, in my head, I was like, that wasn't 5. The generator types are called the alchemists, because it's through their mastery that they transform their talent into mastery, or their talent. They cultivate their raw talent, the coal, right? And turn it into gold.
Oh yeah, that's much more empowering, the alchemist. I love that. So, Oh, I can't. When is your book coming out? Or your next, when are the books coming out that you're writing about?
So I have a book coming out in mid-September that is called The Quantum Human. It is the outline of the mechanics of the shift and the changes in the energy field. I have another book coming out also around the same time called The Human Design Codex, or the Quantum Human Design Codex, which is all the new language. I actually have a mini guide that I just published this 2 weeks ago. That's about human design and the coronavirus. It's the human design, if you will, of the coronavirus and the pandemic and what it actually means in terms of the mechanics of the shift that we're in and the importance of this virus experience. I don't want to say it's great, but it is playing a part in what's going on in terms of our shift and our change. So that's coming out as well.
Nice. Can you give us a teaser, like a little bit more about what it is, without
So
giving people?
the coronavirus, all pandemics in human design start with the sun in the 44th gate, which correlates to the 44th hexagram from the Chinese I Ching. The 44th gate is all about breaking free from the patterns of the past. So this pandemic, anytime we have a pandemic, this is true, but this pandemic started actually in November by design. And in November of last year, it initiated the sequence where we are breaking free from the patterns of the past and literally telling a new story, a new narrative about who we are collectively. It has forced us to take a big step back, to look at the bigger picture, to redefine what is really valuable, and begin to construct new collective ways of being in the world that reflects an enhanced sense of value and focuses on not creating value necessarily on the material plane, meaning we're not really focusing so much anymore on measuring our value with things like money or numbers, but instead looking at how much well-being am I creating for my life? And that becomes now this new metric of what's successful in the world. We are successful when we occupy fully the energy of well-being. And of course, having to face illnesses and some of the disruptions that we've had is really forcing us ultimately to have to really, really define for ourselves what does it mean to be well, and how do we live into a state of well-being, and how do we now create a society and collective structures and tribal structures, if you will, and community structures that enhance our well-being and speak into the idea that each and every one of us is valuable, not because of numbers, but we're each and every one of us valuable because we exist. Our existence, each and every one of us holds a space in existence that no one else can occupy, that makes us all collectively who we are. None of us would be who we are without each and every one of us. And we now have to start shifting our focus to how can we bring it up? How can we bring all of us up to really living into this new state of value and existence?
Wow. That is so, I love that version of, what the virus is all about. And it's exactly, it's the shift, it is the change. And I've heard it in so many different ways. And I love that it can correlate with the human design as well. It's kind of like the astrology of it, the human design, all of it, the psychology of what it is. It really is. It's the starting over, or the breaking down, clearing out of the old and allowing something new and better and more community oriented to emerge from that and higher frequency. So is there anything that you want to share that I haven't brought up, haven't touched on, or that you'd like to expand on that I haven't asked you?
I would just say, I mean, this is super simple, but I would just say that for all of us, first of all, none of us is failing our mission. And I think that's the thing I hear my clients say to me over and over again. I don't know who I am. I don't know what my purpose is. I'm afraid I'm failing my mission. If you wake up in the morning, you're not failing your mission. Your existence is the mission. So I really want to invite everybody to start letting go of this idea that there's something you have to do that's your purpose and your mission. It's who you be that's your purpose and your mission. The energy space that you occupy, the full expression of you being who you are, is the contribution you're here to make to the world. And so if you're sitting in a space where you're like, my life is in transition and I don't know who I am and I don't know what my purpose is and I don't know what to do. There's nothing you have to do. Be honest about who you are and what you want. And when you can be honest about those pieces, when you can be authentic about those pieces, the rest of it will start to unfold. So give up this idea that there's a mission that involves some kind of doing, that if you're not doing it, you're failing. You're not. Your existence is your mission. And number two, if we take a sneak peek, if you will, at what's going on in the next 5 to 7 years, 5 to 10 years, if you want to take a longer range view, everything's going to be okay. Don't let the day to day, like, oh my God, what's on CNN today? Don't let the day to day fluctuations of a longer term evolutionary process freak you out. Everything is going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be exactly what you've been dreaming it to be, probably since you got here. It's going to happen. The stars say it. It's been, it's unfolding as we speak. And I will tell you, anybody who's even a moderately bad astrologer has been telling us for years now, 2020, be careful. Yeah, it's a rough year, but it's a catalytic year. We're shaking things down that don't work because we're building things back up that are going to be more equitable, more sustainable, more just, more peaceful. And we have the potential. In fact, I will say, have as much bold swagger as to say, I know that we are on the cusp of finding all of the elegant solutions to the challenges facing humanity today. They may not show up in the way that we think they will. They may show up synchronistically, if you will, but they will show up and everything's going to be okay. So don't panic.
I love that. And it really takes the pressure off. And I know a lot of people are feeling the chaos and the feeling the stretch right now. And that really helps because, yes, it's happening. And I think, yeah, so many like readers, psychics, astrologers, you name it, they've all been saying it, and it is the time. But yet for those who are hurting, lost somebody in chaos and all of that, it's like, I guess it's just about, like you said in the beginning, do your personal work, and just be, and then, I mean, what about, are they supposed to wait it out? What's your take on that? Or just really dive in and be?
Well, so everybody's path is going to be different. And I think, again, part of what human design shows us is at least some aspects of the path that will be different. There are certain types, the generator types, so those will be the manifestors and the manifesting generators. They're probably going to end up in some way doing the work, if you will, of building things, literally and figuratively. If you're a projector, you might not ever get called out to do the work. Your job might simply be to stay on the couch and hold the grid in place. And that's okay. We all have a different role. We all have different parts to play, but collectively, we're all playing those parts when we live true to who we are.
Yeah. And then it comes back to just listening to the timing, and waiting if you're called to wait, and acting if you're called to act.
Right. And that is so flippin' simple. and I think, I think sometimes in the dialogues that we have about complex topics like ascension, our human brains are so deeply entrained to think, oh, it's going to be complicated. I got to have this crystal, this essence, this right timing under this portal, and then this will happen. And it really can be as simple as go do the things that feel fun. Mm-hmm. And just be with that, and you're going to be fine. And so go have fun, go relax and enjoy yourself. Don't take it so seriously. Put the light back in light work. And I mean, not like the heavy duty light, like go play and do your best to stay in that space, because that's what will lift us up. Keep it simple.
Indeed. Yes. And then it all comes back to who you're being in the process. And if it feels like a heavy thing to do, then just don't do it. Right. But let it be. And it'll all, I mean, I do feel like it's all moving into something really amazing and awesome. And we're just not quite there yet, but it's happening.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah. So, could you give us a sense of if someone were to work with you, what would that look like? Do you do charts? I know that you do offer a free chart that we're going to send people to. But if someone gets their chart done, do you do personal readings or do you teach classes or what does it look like?
I actually don't do personal readings anymore, but I do train people to do personal readings. And so if you go to our website, there's a whole page of amazing, amazing students who, or they're not students anymore, they're practitioners who have all kinds of wisdom and knowledge that they bring to the table in conjunction, oftentimes, with their human design studies as well. So that's the best place to go find someone to get a reading from if you're interested in doing a reading. Obviously, of course, I have books. Several people have books now on Amazon. So go search human design. My book is called Understanding Human Design. That's kind of the first basic book about human design. And of course, if you go visit our website or go follow the links that you'll get in your free report, there's all kinds of different places where you can go and take classes and trainings, professional and otherwise, that can help you deepen your understanding of who you are, how your chart works, why perhaps you think you are the way that you are, and what you need to do. And this is the most important part, what you need to do to consciously craft a narrative, a personal story about who you want to be, who you want to grow into, who you want to express as the fulfillment of the story you're living in. Use those words, use human design as a tool to really give yourself a story that's worthy of you really living into.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to your book, and I'll be including the links so everyone can go to your website and get their free chart done. Actually, I'm going to have them do that before we start the conversation. So hopefully everybody that's watching has already done that, and you can kind of follow along and get some basics, and then we'll send them to your website too. So whoever wants a practitioner or is looking to go deeper, they can work with somebody or take one of your classes. But also, I would love for everyone to go to the Facebook page that is associated with this, and we'll be talking about human design and did you do your chart? Let us know what you learned about yourself or about human design, or anything that you came away from this conversation with that was impactful or made a difference for you. We'd love to hear your feedback. So please put that in the Facebook page. And that will end there today. Thank you so much, Karen. I really, really enjoyed this. And I feel like I have so much more of an understanding of what your work is about. And it's so empowering. And I so appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, we are a community of light workers and you do not have to do it alone. Thank you for joining us, and namaste.